Monster Hunter Rise was first released for the Nintendo Switch on the 26th of March 2021, and with it came loads of new monsters and mechanics. The main game-changing mechanic was of course the wire bug. However, I'm here to talk about a change that in my opinion could evolve in order to change how elements work in the future of Monster Hunter. Elements and blight have been a part of the series since the very first Monster Hunter game. The word blight in this context means something that spoils or damages something, in this case, the player. Once a monster is killed, you can usually craft enough armor with good resistance to said blight, potentially even nullifying them with enough of said resistance or a weapon utilizing that element in order to deal more damage to monsters weak to it. For instance, killing a Kezu and then using its weapon would deal more damage to Rathalos, as he's weak to thunder. At first, it was only fire, water, thunder and dragon, but ice was introduced in Generation 2. Up until Monster Hunter Tri, monsters' elemental attacks worked similarly to weapons. This is to say, if you had poor fire defense, a fire attack would deal more damage to you. However, once Gen 3 came around, they changed how blights worked. Now, fire would do gradual ticking damage. Water would have your stamina recovery decrease rapidly. Ice would shrink your stamina bar, as well as potentially inflict the Snowman status, and thunder would leave you more susceptible to paralysis. The effect of hot maps like the volcano and cold maps like the tundra would work the exact same as fire and ice blight respectively. Dragon blight would originally just decrease affinity of weapons by 50%, but now from Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate onwards, it removes both ailments and elements from weapons. There is an exception with how Dragon Blight works, but that's related to Valstrax's equipment, and we won't be talking about that today. Anyway, in order to remove these blights, you can use a Nullberry, cleanser boosters, or the appropriate mantles in Worldborn. There are certain cases in which you can remove them in unique ways. For instance, Fire Blight will be removed after rolling in water or just rolling enough times. Weapons like Lance will have to evade more than weapons like Sword and Shield though. Ice Blight can be removed by crouching in hot springs, such as in the Hoarfrost Reach, and Water Blight can be removed by wire dashing multiple times. Blights remained essentially unchanged for the entirety of the 3rd, 4th and 5th generations, until Monster Hunter Rise was released. In Rise, Blights received an overhaul, as now monsters could be affected by them too. Ice Blight also saw a rework in how it functions. Fire Blight, Water Blight and Thunder Blight remained the same when the hunter is inflicted by it, but the effects of cold and heat are not present anymore. Ice Blight now reduces how fast the wire bugs recover after being used, as wire bugs are the current new mechanic and honestly a lot more noticeable compared to the older versions of Ice Blight in my opinion. One of the best changes in my eyes is how blights can now affect monsters. In order to do so, you must use an attack that uses said element when wyvern riding, or by grabbing one of the 4 new endemic beetles and throwing them at the monster. An additional method was added in Sunbreak in the form of the Starburst bugs. If an elemental attack, beetle or weapon makes contact with these bugs, they store said element and then upon impact with a monster, deal damage, as well as inflicting said blight. The only element that doesn't work this way is Dragon, and it's probably due to how Dragon is treated as a very unstable energy source in Monster Hunter. Basically, I'm assuming the bugs would explode if they took in Dragon element. But anyway, back onto the topic of what each element does to a monster. If a monster is hit with Fire Blight, it will take 30 ticking damage for the duration of the blight. In this regard, it's very similar to Poison, and will actually stack with it. If a monster is hit with Thunder Blight, any attack to the head, regardless of if it's sharp, piercing or blunt, will deal stun damage, and if enough hits are received, it will stun the monster. If the monster is hit with Ice Blight, well, it's not super crazy, but it slows the monster down. I have to say, I don't think it's incredibly noticeable unless you're fighting something with crazy speed like Primordial, Scorned or Valstrax. And finally, since Dragon Blight can't be dealt to monsters in this way, my personal favourite, Water Blight. If a monster is hit with this, it's essentially like tenderizing the entire monster. It makes part breaks easier and can even result in previously bad hit zones becoming just as good as a target. For instance, when Espinas is in its hardened state or the metal wraths are not in their incandescent state, Water Blight will mean you can deal much more damage, and potentially even get a part break. The only other way of inflicting blights onto monsters in Rise is using the special elemental barrels given as rewards during the rampages, but I'm sure very few people use them. Considering how Wild seems to be leaning more into weather as well as being similar looking to World, it seems like blights won't bring forward Rise changes. This doesn't mean we can't speculate on how they might be utilised in future games. The most prominent feature I hear, and also thought about, is how elemental weapons could also inflict blights like the beetles in Rise. This would be an amazing idea, but there would definitely have to be extensive balancing done. This is because of how overpowered Thunderblight could be, with hundreds of stuns per hunt. Not to mention how this was brought up in tweets about a similar conversation by Jan Karuga, it would possibly mean status weapons are even more outclassed. Now this doesn't mean it's impossible to work around, but it would certainly require a hell of a lot of testing to get right. Another idea I've seen presented, specifically by the Red January, is a very interesting one. This would be that by using something like a water longsword, you'll be able to diminish or straight up cut away something like a fireball. This would be a very interesting change, and one that could see a lot of amazing tricks being pulled off. Once again though, this would require a lot of work, and to be honest, I'm not entirely sure what thunder weapon interactions, let alone dragon ones, would do. But having more interactions like this would help elemental weapons feel less like just an additional stat and more part of the world. In conclusion, elements are definitely a massive cornerstone in Monster Hunter combat, and I don't see this current form of elements changing anytime soon. That being said, I'm not opposed to the team experimenting with these ideas, and I'm sure from what Risebreak has shown us, the portable games will continue experimenting while the mainline streamlines it in such a way that everyone will be able to get an unbelievably well thought out element system. If anyone can do it, it's the Monster Hunter team. Quick, channel and video update time. I'm finally back, and with hopefully more consistent uploads. I know I have the challenge video to finish, as well as the Xenoblade one I promised a while back. That being said, I'm hoping to get some consistency with this channel, so expect more info about that when that drops. People might also be wondering about Frontier, and all the other unique elements present in the broader Monster Hunter franchise. Originally this video was going to be exclusively about water blight and why I like part breaks, but as you can tell, it's ballooned into a bit more. That being said, I do think the other elements could make for an interesting video, so I'll put it behind the like goal, why not? If this video gets 300 likes, I'll make a follow-up video, all about Frontier, Online, as well as any other Monster Hunter with elements. I know statuses are another topic some people might be interested in, so that could definitely be another video, but I'll see what people say. Finally, subscribe, follow me on Twitter, and vote on my recent community poll so I can see what your favourite element is. Thank you for watching, and have a wonderful day.